Cory Booker was in Charleston, South Carolina today at the church where a white supremacist gunned down 9 black worshippers. That was just 4 years ago. Before the attack, the gunman was active on a storm front, one of the oldest and largest neo-Nazi and white supremacy hate sites on the internet. In investigating the Charleston gunman and his online presence, my next guest eventually met Derek Black. He's a former white nationalist who walked away from the hate-filled ideology. The Washington Post reporter and writer Eli Saslow spent years researching the white supremacy community. He's the author of Rising Out of Hatred, Derek Black's story growing up as a white supremacist and how he found his way out. Eli, welcome to the show. So let me start with give a sense of what kind of problem this is on the internet and how much this is a growing issue.
It's a massive problem. And unfortunately, it's not just a massive problem on the internet, as we're seeing increasingly. I mean, I think sometimes in this country, our primary problem has been we lie to ourselves about who we are and who we have been as a country. And it's comforting to think of these terrorists, these white supremacist terrorists, as outside agitators, as lone wolves, acting as extremists on their own. The truth is, many of these ideas in their manifestos, many of the ideas that we hear sometimes echoed in the Oval Office or the places of power in our country are also widely held racist beliefs and assumptions throughout large parts of white America. And that's kind of the big thing that we need to confront, I think, to begin to move past it.
Well, look, Tucker Carlson sort of implied that this idea of white supremacy or all of this is somehow it's a hoax of some sort. David Duke took his words already and says, that's right, he's right. I mean, explain just the power of that exchange and what that does to normalize the idea of white supremacy and white nationalism.
I mean, I think that the idea that white supremacy is a hoax is factually ridiculous on its face. I mean, white supremacy still informs much of what our country is in this moment in terms of, white people having power in the country, white people having more share of wealth, white people being privileged in almost every possible way. White supremacy is the world we're all existing in. So I think that first needs to be acknowledged. And then you have a group of white nationalists, as they call themselves, who are constantly activating to try to further white supremacy and to further the culture of white supremacy that has been such a part of this country. That is a smaller group of people that are talking to each other on the internet, that are talking to each other through manifestos, that are talking to each other on podcasts. But they're acting out of an instinct that is a much more widely held thing in this country, powerful enough to get people elected.
With ISIS, there's an al-Baghdadi that was sort of the head recruiter, if you will. You had al-Awlaki, of AQAP, a recruiter for al-Qaeda out there. Is there a centralization to this, or is this a little more disparate?
I think one of the things that makes it so difficult to fight and confront is that it's really insidious and it's pretty diffuse because, within white nationalism, you have a lot of different factions. You have people who would consider themselves almost more academic racists, people like Richard Spencer who say that they aren't, pushing violence, although that's not necessarily true, but who organize conferences and things like that. And then you have people who actively want to create violence and who look to people like Dylan Roof or other mass shooters as their icons in this movement. I think the most troubling thing, like the unifying thing for all of those people, if you spend time on Gab or 8chan or Stormfront, these places where white nationalists speak to each other, the people that they're going back to for inspiration, the quotes that they're resharing are quotes from people like Thomas Jefferson or George Washington, who was referenced earlier in this segment. I mean, these white nationalist ideas are a part of what we've been, and that's their powerful fuel. That is what is furthering their actions.
You have spent time with how people got out. Are these all young white men that get recruited here? I mean, it feels like there is a group that seems susceptible.
For sure. I mean, and it's not different than the group that's susceptible, frankly, for ISIS or for other, terrorist and extremist groups. These are mostly white, disaffected young men who are feeling badly about the way their lives are going for many reasons. And these white nationalist groups and this white nationalist ideology kind of comes in and almost absolves them of their own blame in
Right.
how their lives are going, and says, this isn't happening because of you. It's happening because of the invaders coming across
Right.
the border, or because people of color need to go back to some different place.
Yeah.
These factually inaccurate, hateful things.
Yeah.
But that's a powerful thing to offer
Okay.
somebody who feels disempowered.
Eli Zaslow, it's a tremendous book, and it's been a tremendous story for you to be covering. Unfortunately, you're going to be covering it a lot more. So, hello, YouTubers. If you're watching this, it means you've checked out our channel, so thank you. Now do me a favor, subscribe by clicking on that button down there. Click on any of the videos to watch the latest interviews and highlights from MTP Daily and MSNBC. You can get more Meet the Press content every morning in the First Read newsletter. If you're tired of content that you don't know anything about where it came from, you don't have to have that problem with us. NBC News, MSNBC, MTP, and the Meet the Press mindset right here for you on YouTube. Subscribe now.